Thanks for everybody being here in the building. Thanks for you all down there in Zoom land. We appreciate you being here. And there may be even a few of you who will get to see this on the YouTube. So, last time I did this, I was terrified. And I thought I did a poor job, but we'll never know. Anyway, I really enjoyed preparing for this talk on understanding because I have never spoken about understanding in the church before. So I got to read a lot of things by the Fillmores and Divine Audacity. See all the pretty little markers I put on my books so they could all see the things that I read. I really studied hard. Then on Tuesday or Wednesday, I sat down and I started to write. Oh, I wrote for an hour and a half. And I got completely bored. And all I could think was, if I am completely bored by what I'm writing, what in the world would the people listening to it have to think? So I did something that I've done in the past, and I do almost every time when I prepare for a talk. I actually sat down and said a prayer. I said, you have to help me with some inspiration. I need to be inspired if I'm going to inspire people to listen to me. So I sat down, I shut up, and I got silent. Something like that, but much longer. And what happened, oh, God forbid, I actually got inspired. Never could believe it, would you? Prayer and somebody answers and inspires you. Unfortunately, it wasn't what I wanted. And it wasn't even something that was really clear. It only became clear after a couple days. Because the first thing that popped into my mind in this process of being inspired was I got two names, Randy and Rance. I'll talk more about them later. And then I got this other piece of inspiration when the people asked me to speak about surrender. That was an experience I hope I never have to repeat, because I could not talk about surrender. It was not possible for me. I tried and tried and tried to talk about surrender, and I ended up talking about not surrendering. Some people in the community at that time came up to me afterwards and thanked me because they said they had a hard time surrendering too. Yet I know at least one person on the speakers committee found it very offensive that I had not done what I was asked to do. So I apologize to anybody who was offended about my talk on not surrendering. So before I tell you more about my little inspiration, I need to put something in your head. And this is from the book Divine Audacity by Linda Martell-Wetzel. And she takes each one of the powers of man and breaks them down into component parts. And the component parts of understanding are comprehension, realization, and insight. So let me repeat them again. Comprehension, realization, and insight. That's really going to be important, so I want you to keep that in your mind as we're going through this. So back to inspiration. Randy and Rance, some 56 years ago, when I was 12 years old, were just a couple years older than I was and my brother. And we were living in Lakota, North Dakota, and my stepfather was in the process of doing all the surveying for all the Minuteman missiles that were being put in to our country at that time. That was his job, and we moved all over the country doing that. But we had a great time that summer. We played baseball when we could, and if we didn't have enough for teams, we played work up or 3 flies up or 500 for those who know those games. But Randy and Rance were these fraternal twins. You know, they didn't look alike at all. Randy was blonde and blue-eyed, and Rance was dark-haired and dark-eyed. And they were not nice boys. They decided that it would be really funny if they ran around when we were playing baseball, grab one of us, and pull his pants down. It was not funny. And they did it over a period of days, maybe even a week. They would come up and grab one or two of us and pull their pants down. Well, when they got to me, I had an opportunity to watch this happen. And when they grabbed me and they threw me on the ground, I began to fight. I kicked, I screamed, I hit, I squirmed. I did everything in my power to keep from them doing that to me. I did not surrender. And they got up and they went away being unsuccessful. Here's the first part of comprehension in this comprehension, realization, insight. I realized at that point in my life, 56 years ago, I learned a lesson. I learned to never give up, to never surrender. For a 12-year-old boy, that works out okay. That way you don't get hurt in fights. People leave you alone because they know you won't give up. When you're wrestling in high school, it's a pretty good quality to be able to keep fighting through something, whether you're winning or losing. Keep doing your very best. It's a great thing. However, when you're 62 or 63 years old and somebody asks you to speak about surrender to a group of people at church, it doesn't work so well. So, for those who listened to that talk several years ago, I want you to know you were listening to a 12-year-old boy that was scared to death. He could not surrender. He could not give up. And he did the very best he could when he did that talk. So that was my inspiration for this talk. And now I need to talk a little about. So those are the two pieces of comprehension I had. Randy and Rance, and my talk on not surrendering. The realization part of this is I realized that 12-year-old boy was giving that talk. That in life sometimes we have things happen to us that at times are very good for us. They protect us or whatever. But sometimes we get to a place where they're no longer serving us. It only took me 56 years to have this insight that I can choose. I can choose what's going to happen to me. Every day I can choose. I can choose to surrender or not. And it's a great thing in my life for the first time in 56 years to tell you that it's a choice now. It's a powerful, powerful choice I have. So in deepening your understanding and deepening my understanding, I got to do this talk. And for that, I am truly thankful. because for the first time, again, in 56 years, I have a choice that I was not given in the past. Charles Fillmore has some really wonderful things to say. And if you've not looked at the 12 Powers of Man book and looked at the powers in there, it's really quite extraordinary. And I want to share 2 short paragraphs with you from his work that I think will lend some more insight to this whole process. And this is what he says. He says, no one ever attains spiritual consciousness without striving for it. The first step is to ask. Ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Prayer is one form of asking, seeking, and knocking. Then you make your mind receptive to the higher understanding through silent meditation and affirmative truth. Earnest desire to understand spiritual things will open the way, and revelation within and without will follow. If that is not a description of what happened to me while I was preparing for this talk, I don't know what is. 2 things I really think are extraordinarily important in this process is you don't get it without working for it. I don't like the word strive. It seems like that's too punitive somehow. But you have to choose that you want a deeper understanding. You've got to ask in some way, whether it's reading a book that inspires you, listening to music that inspires you, listening to a talk that may or may not inspire you. But you have to do something. You have to have an earnest desire. It's a great gift. It's a great gift. Now, this is the part that I think is funny. Sometimes Charles is funny. Anyway, in my mind, he was funny. It says, spiritual understanding is developed in a multitude of ways. No 2 persons have exactly the same experience. Thank God. One may be Saul, to whom light comes as a blinding flash, while the other, the light may come gently and harmoniously. I think the story about Paul being knocked off a donkey, or I believe it's sometimes called an ass, and being blinded, that's not good, and being blinded in the process, and having the donkey talk to him, that's pretty incredible inspiration. So may your inspiration come to you in gentle and harmonious ways. But we do have to act. We have to make a choice to deepen our understanding. It's just the way it works. I think the tenets of this church are a guideline to that deepening. We know that God is good and present in everything, everywhere. And that we're naturally good because God's divinity is in us and in everyone. And through prayer and meditation, we come in conscious contact with that God, and we bring out the good in our lives. We deepen our understanding of ourselves, our world, and God. And the last tenet, I'm skipping one of them, but the last tenet is, I do my best by living the truth I know. You have to strive. You do your best by giving the best you know. There is action in this deepening our understanding. We have to choose to do it. And in my way of thinking, choice is the grace of God. For in every moment of our lives, we get to choose. Sometimes it takes 56 years to have enough realization and insight to be able to choose differently. Hopefully, none of you have that experience. But it's really been an important one. For today, I can choose differently. I can surrender. I can let go and let God in ways I never thought possible. That's what I have to share with you today. And if we could, for a moment, sit silently, and if you would, get comfortable. We'll take a couple deep breaths together in a moment. Then I want you to think about something you have a question about. What do you want to understand? What do you need some insight, some realization, some comprehension about? What do you need to deepen your understanding about? So let us take a couple breaths together, in and out. And once again, in and out. In this silent moment, we ask that we be inspired to know the truth of our lives, our divinity. And we rest in the knowing that our knock, our ask, will be heard and answered. Now gently, gently, come back into your bodies. Come back into the space in which you're sitting. Let us say our prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.